Coming to the another factor, that is lack of advancement. So we see that the Mughal army, it was, it relied on a very obsolete and, very old and ineffective techniques and equipments of warfare. So whenever they went out for a battle, their, the methods of war using swords and all, these were all backward and outdated. They could not meet the requirements of the new equipments that were new developments that were happening everywhere. So this use of obsolete and ineffective technology, backward technology in the warfare became another factor for their failure. They could not defend themselves from foreign invasions. Foreign invasions, be it, coming from even the Muslim invaders that came in the later period, like Nadir Shah and all. And obviously the superior technology of the Britishers. The Mughals could not face the superior technology when they came with cannons and all, nice equipments, developed equipments, better artillery, and better equipments they came up with. The Mughals could not fight with them, and that became one of the reasons for its decline. There was decline in the military strength also. The later Mughal rulers, they could not maintain the army as such so much in number because of the shortage of land. They were unable to pay. So we see that basically this technological backwardness was another important factor which led to the decline of the Mughal Empire. Then, talking about the next important factor, wars of succession. What is this war of succession? That is, who is going to succeed the ruler once there is a king. Okay, when he dies, then who is going to succeed and go on to become the ruler? Mughals, they did not follow the law of primogeniture. Now, what is this law of primogeniture? This primogeniture is a law that whosoever will be the eldest son, he will go on to become the king after the death of the king. So when the ruler dies, when the king dies, his eldest son by default will go on to become the ruler. So this is law of primogeniture. It was, earlier followed by the indigenous rulers of our country. In many other regions, it is followed. But the Mughals, they did not have this concept. So when they came here, they did not follow this concept of primogeniture. They did not have this thing. Okay, the eldest son will go on to become the ruler. No, so what happened, whenever a ruler died, a Mughal ruler would die, so there would be fight among all the brothers who could claim their authority to the throne. There would be fight amongst them that I want the throne, I want the throne. So everyone will indulge in conspiracy. They will fight amongst the brothers only, amongst themselves. They will, team up sometimes with an enemy, sometimes with another noble, and come up with conspiracy, killing each other just to get the throne. So when there is fight in the family, fight happening in the royal family, then obviously it is going to weaken the kingdom. So there was always a war of succession because it was not clear who is going to succeed, who is going to take over the throne. So they did not have this law of primogeniture where it was pre-decided, okay, the eldest son will become. No. So we see, like, later on there was fight that happens between Dara Shikoh and Aurangzeb, who is going to, become take over the rule. We see that Shah Jahan was in favor of Dara Shikoh taking over the kingdom, but ultimately Aurangzeb, he plans it properly and he takes over the throne. So there was always this, fight happening among the brothers to take over the throne. So there was always this war of succession. Now the succession meant that drained of resources, each brother, each person who can claim the throne would go on to, use wealth to influence or to get people in their favor, get the vote of the nobles in their favor. They would go and, meet up with another king of some other kingdom to get their help and support. So this will all drain the resources while they are fighting amongst themselves. So this made the empire weak and unstable. So this war of succession was another reason which made the Mughal Empire quite weak, and it brought about its eventual decline. Then the next factor comes Aurangzeb's policies. Aurangzeb's policy, in your book, it is given his policy of religious tolerance. Kindly correct it. It is not tolerance, rather, it is policy of religious intolerance. What is religious tolerance? Religious tolerance is when you have faith in your own religion and you also accept other people's faith and religion. You have no objection or problem with another person following another religion. You are totally fine with it. Just like we see that Akbar was an religiously tolerant person, that he followed his own religion while he also had respect for the other religion. We see that he got married to a Rajput queen, yet he allowed her to continue with her religion. He respected the other religion. He had immense respect for the Rajputs also, despite that they were Hindus. So we see he was religiously tolerant. He also held, Akbar is known to have held discussion where he would call people of different faiths, different religion, and they will have a healthy discussion. So he believed, and he was religiously tolerant. But Aurangzeb was quite orthodox. He was religiously intolerant. He just had absolute faith in his own religion, and he was not at all he did not have acceptance towards other religion. He did not like other people following the religion. He was very orthodox. So we see one this factor that he was very religiously intolerant. So the other people who were of common people of other faith, they did not like him. They disliked him. So he was quite unpopular king. Then his Deccan campaigns led to many rebellions. So Aurangzeb, in order to expand his empire, he goes on to these southern regions, to the Deccan regions, in order to acquire more land under his control, more kingdoms under his control. But they turned out to be complete failures. He went there, but he just had met with losses, and he did not gain there. So it also led to a lot of rebellions. There was rebellions among the Jats, the Sikhs, and Marathas and Rajputs, because of his policy of being religiously intolerant, where he did not accept, or he did not maintain friendly terms with the Rajputs and other people of other religions, Sikhs and all. He did not maintain friendly relations. So one factor was that. And his Deccan campaigns, where he goes on to Deccan to acquire those, it led to a lot of rebellion among these people, Jats, Sikhs, Marathas, and it turned a lot of people against him, and it also brought about drained all his resources. The Deccan campaign, it was a complete waste of wealth and resources. It was a complete disaster. His Deccan campaign was a complete disaster that eventually brought about the collapse of the empire. So, the complete disaster that the Deccan campaign was, it eventually brought about the collapse of the Mughal Empire. Next factor was the weak successors. Initially, we saw that they were such great, efficient, able rulers, Mughal rulers, like you know the names Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb. They are very well known kings. They were very powerful kings who established and consolidated the empire, who continued to rule for so long. They were very strong, emperors. But we see eventually the later Mughal rulers, they turned out to be very weak, inefficient, and they indulged in pleasure loving. That is, they indulged in enjoying the luxuries. They were not so much competent, taking up measures to expand the empire, go and attack this kingdom and acquire that, or so as to protect that kingdom. They were not so much involved in that. They were enjoying the luxuries of their life. They did not have the administrative sharpness or shrewdness. They were not so smart and not so competitive. They were not so far sighted as efficient rulers as the previous Mughal rulers had been. So these successors of these great Mughal rulers, they turned out to be quite weak and inefficient. So eventually their administration began to be handled by the nobles and the governors who they had appointed. So eventually the nobles, they tried to take control over the administration and all, and the direct control of the ruler over the kingdom is lost. So eventually what happened, when a particular they were the entire kingdom that would stretch from north up to Deccan, the Mughal rulers, a ruler would rule over such the entire region, almost the entire country. So there would be small different regions who were placed under different governors to take control over it, to manage the administration. So eventually when the ruler himself indulges in enjoying the luxuries, he does not participate in the administration. So eventually the governors of these little kingdoms, they try to extend their control, and they go on to assert their authority over these small kingdoms, and they declare their independence. They revolt against the ruler. They take control over these small kingdoms over which they were given, governance to, administer it. Eventually, they rebel against the king and take control over those smaller kingdoms, and it brought about, many independent kingdoms began to emerge in the Mughal provinces. So many small kingdoms, they began to detach themselves from the kingdom of the ruler. They asserted their independence, and that is how the authority of the Mughal emperor decreased. His empire, his control over the empire decreased, and his authority decreased. His kingdom began to shrink as more and more kingdoms began to assert their independence. So the nobles and governors began to assert their authority more. They became more dominant. Many kingdoms became independent. So the rulers, they were, as it is very weak and inefficient, they could not do anything about it. And so eventually we see that these weak successors eventually brought about the decline of the Mughal empire because of the inefficiency and incompetency. And then another major factor which brought about the decline of the Mughal Empire were the invasions, the foreign invasions, these plunders and looters who came from Afghanistan and the Central Asia region, who came to here this country and looted and plundered of all the wealth. We see that the invasion made by Nadir Shah. Nadir Shah invaded India in 1739 AD. This is very important. When did Nadir Shah invade? He invaded in 1739 during the rule of Muhammad Shah. He was again a very weak Mughal ruler. So Nadir Shah, he comes, and the ruler seat is situated mainly in Delhi. He comes up to Karnal, the region which is in Haryana, and he's not opposed by any of these rulers. There is no opposition that he faces by the Mughal ruler. There is no army attack. Nothing stops him. He comes straight up to Karnal with no opposition. So eventually, they are very strong. They come and attack the ruler in Delhi, clearly defeating the Mughal emperor. The weak, incompetent Mughal emperor is defeated, and this invader Nadir Shah, he goes on to massacre the entire city. People are killed, cities burnt, and he goes on to plunder all the wealth of Delhi. India was first known as the Sone ki Chidiya. Why? Because it was so rich. India had always been so rich, amount of wealth and jewelry and gold and pearls. The amount of wealth that India has always had, the country has always had, it was all plundered by these foreign invaders. They came here, looted and plundered. So he came here, he plundered all its wealth. The Kohinoor diamond, the peacock throne, which was, constructed by this Shah Jahan at Red Fort, which had all these jewels on it. It was all taken away by the Nadir Shah. He came, he plundered, took away, around 30 crore rupees in cash, pearls, jewelry, diamonds, 1,000 elephants, around 7,000 horses, 10,000 camels, and many even young girls from the Mughal harem. He just took away all these, plundered, came here, massacred, killed people, burned the city, looted all the wealth, and went away. So this, obviously, the ruler who is left behind, he's left behind with nothing. So that is how the decline of the Mughal empire was brought about. That is how they weakened the empire, that there was no strong opposition left. When Britishers come here, the Mughal rulers, they are inefficient, incapable of fighting or driving them off. So eventually Britishers come, they see a weak kingdom here, hardly any ruler who is strong enough. So they come and easily take over the control over the country. Then another invasion, we talk about Ahmad Shah Abdali. He invaded many times between the time period 1748 to 67. He invaded many times. He did the same. He killed thousands of people, looted money and all the wealth from here, looted and plundered, and took it away. He came here. At that time, Marathas were considered to be quite powerful, but even in the third battle of Panipat that happens in 1761, Ahmad Shah Abdali defeats even the Marathas. He looted, killed people, and gave a final crushing blow to the Marathas and the Mughals. So finally, these invasions, they further weaken the rule of the Mughals here, financially also by not leaving behind any wealth, by massacring people, and by defeating the rulers. So all these reasons, they all were responsible to bring about the complete decline of the Mughal empire, which was once so glorious and strong and powerful. So these are all the reasons responsible for the decline of the Mughal empire, and eventually it paved a way for the Britishers to come here and establish that rule. And that is what we'll be studying in our next chapter. So I hope the causes for the decline of the Mughal empire are clear to you. You should be knowing why is it that the Mughal empire declined. These are the several factors responsible for that.